Sir, we'll be starting. Is it fine? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir, we'll be starting now. Is it okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Very good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar organized by Symbiosis Institute of Geoinformatics. We are delighted to have each one of you with us today. I would like to greet and thank our director, sir, and faculty members for joining with us this morning. We are honored to have a distinguished speaker, Mr. Abhishek Das, with us today, who is a leader in the field. He will be sharing his valuable insights and experiences, providing you with a deeper understanding of the field. Mr. Abhishek Das is a senior data scientist with a decade of experience applying advanced analytics and machine learning to solve complex business problems across various domains. He is currently leading the Advanced AI and Generative AI practice at Aptus Data Labs, a leading data engineering and analytics company. Before joining Aptus Data Labs, Mr. Abhishek worked with HSBC and several startups, including Thoucentric, Jugnu, and E2 Open. He has won multiple data science competitions and hackathons, showcasing his passion and expertise in the field. In addition to his professional accomplishments, Mr. Abhishek has served as a data science trainer at an edtech company and currently provides one-on-one mentorship through platforms like TopMate and Preplaced. His book, Data Science with R, is going to be published later this year. His dedication to the field and commitment to fostering his new talent make him a distinguished figure in the data science community. Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's dive in and make the most of this learning opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you again, the placement committee team, for the invitation. So it's an honor to be part of this webinar series. And again, thank you everyone for joining. So today I'm here to show you how to build your data science career roadmap and become a data science pro. So we'll get started with understanding what data science is and what it means to be a data scientist. Okay, so I'll quickly share my screen and just confirm if you are able to see it.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
All right, great. So let's imagine that you are at the crossroads of three cities. Okay, so researcher town, we have another programmer city, and analyst everything. So each city is vibrant and unique. Okay, so with professionals who excel at their respective fields. So now picture a traveler who has journeyed through each of these cities, picking up skills, knowledge, and insights along his way. So this traveler is our modern day data scientist. Okay, so in researcher town, we begin our journey. Okay, so we start with the curiosity of a traditional researcher. So we formulate questions, design experiments, and use statistical methods to test our hypothesis. So we dive deep, seeking to understand like what are the various patterns that we have in our data and any correlations if we can find it out. So we use statistical methods to ensure that our findings are robust and reliable. So next, our traveler moves to the programmer city. So here we'll learn to write code, automate our task, and handle huge amount of data. Right? So we become adept at using programming languages like Python and R. And we master as well various tools which allow us to manipulate and analyze our data quite efficiently. And then finally, if you see our traveler arrives at the analyst avenue. So in this city, we learn to wear the hat of a business analyst. So here we understand that the data is not just about numbers, right? So it's not just numbers, but it's more of a powerful tool that can drive decision making and strategic planning, right? So we become skilled at interpreting our data in the context of the business goals communicating their findings to our stakeholders, and making any recommendations that we could provide from our insights that we have got. So we learn to ask the right questions, understand the what is the business process behind the scene, right? And then deliver the insights which eventually add the real value. So data scientist is not about excelling in just one of these cities, right? So instead it's about blending the best of all the three worlds, right? So we bridge basically the gap between the data and the decision making. So which basically transforms eventually the raw information into a narrative that eventually drives action and innovations, right? So what is the data science? So we can say that at its core, it's a more of a interdisciplinary field that combines all of this statistics, computer science, and the domain expertise, right, to extract meaningful insights and the knowledge from our data. So in the end, if you say, it's all about helping the stakeholders for the decision making, right, leveraging our own data. So it involves the use of all the various techniques and tools to analyze and interpret our complex data, which eventually help us to uncover any patterns and make informed decisions. Okay. By the way, like if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask or stop me in between, or you could also ask in the chat box. Uh, we could take that in the end of the session as well. Okay. Uh, I'm fine with any of this. All right. So next, we'll move on to understand, to check what data scientists do, right? So data scientists wear many hats, each playing a crucial role in transforming the raw data into some actionable insights, right? So let's just dive the key aspects of their work, like what you can say that the data scientist do in his day-to-day job, right? So perhaps all of this might not be doing in the very single day, but yes, these are the major tasks that he performs. So we get started with our own data preparation, right? So we should efficiently extract, transform, and load the data from various sources, which could be like databases, could be CSV or Excel files, APIs, and more other any other sources that we could have. So this step basically involves dealing with any messy data. Most of the real world data, you would find a lot of challenges initially, even all getting from the raw data itself to any challenges like be it the missing values that you could have or uh, incorrect data that you might find right from the data source itself, right? So understanding and finding those out are very crucial that help us in the very first stage to understand before we get into analysis part, right? So the very first stage is more of like you get the data, convert into a clean, organized format, which is ready for our analysis part, right? And analysis is basically our next step, which we call it as EDA, exploratory data analysis. So once our data is prepped, like it's time to explore for us now. So you can think EDA is nothing but it like detectives work, right? So where basically you dig through the data to uncover any hidden patterns and the relationships and trends. So this step basically helps us to form any hypothesis that we might have based on our business understanding and the problem statement. And then we set the direction for any further analysis. Okay. So here also we create any visualizations like histogram, bar charts, scatter plots, or heat maps, basically, that help us to understand what is the data distribution that we have, right? And any relationships that we can find within the features, right? It also helps to identify any outliers if we do have to understand the underlying structure of our data. Okay. And then comes the applied statistics and the machine. This is where most of our interest lies, right? And that's where the magic happens. So using statistical techniques and machine learning algorithm, so we make sense of our data, right? So which help us to predict the future outcomes. So we build ML models for be it for classification, regression, or even to cluster the data based on whatever problems that we have in our hand, right? And the last part is again very one of the most important part as a data scientist, which is nothing but data visualization and communicating our insights, right? So even the most insightful analysis that you do is only as good as its presentation. So we must be excellent at visualizing their findings and communicating them, right? So the right visualization, choosing the right visualization, which helps the stakeholder to interpret it correctly, is very crucial as a data scientist, right? So that basically helps to, and even you have to make sure that the visualization that you're building, like it's effective for a diverse audience, right? All ranging from technical teams to your business executives. Okay, so that is very important again to understand like who your end audience are, right? So we can use visualization tools as well, like Tableau or Power BI, AWS QuickSight, to create some compelling graphs and dashboards. So we need to ensure that the visualizations are clear, concise, and tailored to your audience level of understanding. Okay, that is the most important thing that we should do. So you need to tell a story with the data by bringing uh, all the key findings, insights, and the recommendations together in a single uh, deck. Okay, so that is all that we have to do, right? So we get started with the data, prepare it for our analysis, we do the analysis, we find some insights, we build some model, and we get it deployed. And finally, we help all this analysis that we have done throughout the project via a presentation or a dashboard to help the business stakeholders understand that, hey, this is what happening in your business, and this is what we are recommending to do. And then it's the call of the business stakeholder that, okay, what to take, what not to take based on all the other external factors, and take a data-driven decisions done by our analysis. Okay, cool. So now let's move on to understand what are various data roles that we have in the market and what are their responsibilities, right? So if you see, each role needs a distinct skill sets and focus area, and each role performs a number of tasks, right, in your AI development cycle. So how does a typical data science project lifecycle work, right? So we just discussed a few minutes back about a very broad level about the type of tasks, right? From that, we can understand that very first, someone prepares the data for ML modeling, then someone trains a model on this data. And once that happens, like our model training and everything, the ML model is delivered to the end customer or stakeholders. Then the team members analyze the model to determine that whether it brought any value to the business or not, right? And if all goes well, the cycle will repeat itself with the new data, model, and analysis. Now, let's consider the task and the rules that we have in our data science project individually. Okay, so if we look into the column wise first that we have, so data engineering, basically they prepare data and perform like transform the data into some formats that other team members can use. ML modeling, the machine learning modeling, basically look for patterns in our data and predict outcomes of various decisions, which basically identifies any business risk and the opportunities that we might have. Then we have model deployment. So model deployment, basically they take a stream of data and combines with a model and test the integration before putting into the model into the production. And then we have the business analysis. So basically they evaluate a deployed model's performance and the business value, and thereby he adjusts according to the requirements and maximize the benefit or uh, abandon the complete unproductive model as well, right? So many times we see that, okay, it's not adding value and it's very minimal, which could be stopped as well. Okay, so if you see, no single individual typically gets enough skills to carry out all of these tasks in a project development. Okay, so many times some startups or even big organizations think that, okay, everything could be done by a single person, whatever you name him, be it data scientist, data engineer, whatever, but he or she should be able to do all of this tasks single-handedly. But that's quite not feasible, and something that the industries, as it getting more mature, it has understood that, okay, that is not being productive and it's not feasible as well, considering the kind of number of tools are that getting uh, into the market, and as well as the kind of technology advancements that's happening. Okay, so If you look into now role wise, okay, in the left hand side, you can find the various roles that I would be mentioning about next. So, data scientist, the most common designation or the role that most of us seek for. So, although by the way, I would tell you one thing that even not just in India, across the globe as well, that these roles in the industries are not very well defined. So when I'm saying not well defined, it's more of like the kind of tasks that they are supposed to perform as per like ideal book terminologies that are not mostly followed in most of the organizations. Okay, so you could find a data analyst building machine learning model. You could find a data scientist who is just doing some analysis and work of it, typical data analyst only. So there are certain differences that you could find among the organizations and the rules that they are providing in their companies. Okay, so and over here we are talking about a typical task that they are supposed to perform. Okay, but just don't get confused by that this actually happens across all the organizations. Okay, so let's get started with the data scientist role. So they show a kind of solid scientific foundations as well as kind of business acumen, which is kind of quite essential as a data scientist. Communication skills are usually quite required to tell stories out of the data patterns. So data scientists basically carry out data engineering, ML modeling, and uh, the business analyst tasks. Okay? Then we have data analysts who showcase a kind of very solid analytical skills as business acumen. So they carry out data engineering, so where they extract like all the data from based on the problem statement from the various data sources, and the business analyst task. Okay. Then comes the machine learning engineer. So machine learning engineer basically they demonstrate very solid scientific and engineering skills. Okay, so they basically carry out all the data engineering, modeling, and the deployment tasks. Okay, so many times they are also get involved in developing new algorithms or modifying or tweaking the existing algorithms as well. They spend a lot of time in researching into the techniques for solving the problem statement, leveraging machine learning techniques, and also deploy effectively, which could scale in the future as well in the production environment. Okay, so sub part of that also came up in the market called as deep learning engineer. Their job is again very similar to ML engineer. They are just working specifically in deep learning models. They are sometimes called as deep learning engineer. And then very popular and interesting role that is you could find quite engaging nowadays in the industries is in data engineer because most of the companies who started early on in the 2010 2015 at that moment machine learning they found out that okay their raw data itself is not strong enough and there are a lot of information that could be additionally captured and not rightly captured even they have been doing since long time. So that is where the data engineering basically comes into the picture who helps the ML engineers or the data scientists to get their things done, right? So data engineer basically carry out all the data engineering modeling and the AI infrastructure tasks. Okay, so they typically also get involved in designing the architecture of the whole application, AI application. So they work pretty well with the data scientists and the analysts and the researchers who take basically the charge of the business analysts and the modeling. Okay, so there's a very broad about the kind of roles that you could identify in the industries, and every role has their own uh, the kind of set of skills and the tools that they typically use. Okay, and all of them are cool. Uh, they all get great packages. It's not that only data scientists are cool just because of the term scientist over there. So all of them are cool. Many times I could see people that okay, they just want to have data scientists just for the namesake, instead of understanding whether their interest lies or not. It's very important that when you're getting into the data field, understand that which is something that you're liking the most. Are you working more of like getting the data ready for the other people to use? Go for data engineering. You were more interested into just doing analysis, not into high-end coding or into getting into deep algorithms, AI stuff. You get into data analyst. You love like sitting in front of the client, explaining them uh, the kind of model insights that you have formed. You're interested in building machine learning models, applied ML algorithms, and you have good understanding of like extracting the data and doing analysis. Data scientist as a role for you. Okay, so try to understand that where your interest lies, and then you pick a particular role and work on that particular itself. Okay, instead of mixing in. All right, so let's just quickly understand what are the now tools required for getting expertise in all of these subfields. So each role requires specific skills and knowledge, right? And we need specific expertise in certain tools as well for this specific task. So ML modeling is usually programmed in Python or R. So the industry standard wise, it's more of like 50%. So I started initially my career with R programming, then eventually switched to Python based on the type of projects I was handling at the time. So for example, the NLP and the deep learning projects you could find mostly in Python itself. And for the last 1.5 years, I've been working with LLMs, and they are mostly develop all the packages and everything in Python itself. So try to understand that where exactly that you're working, because a lot of data analysis tasks and even ML models in the financial industry and the pharmaceuticals you could find they are still into R programming, and it's great. It's not that I would not say absolutely that who is superior. Don't get into the war between the Python versus R. Okay, so both are amazing. So I've worked in both of the languages. As Dijay was mentioning that I've also written a book on data science with R. I started with the R book, and let's say that mostly once it gets published, I will, based on the feedback, I will be also starting writing it for Python language as well. So both of these are equally used in industries, but there are certain scenarios specifically when we are talking about deep learning or the NLP problem statements. We prefer Python over R because of the kind of packages and the frameworks that are available in the market. So few of those are also you could find the wrapper in the R, but still like the Python is more scalable in those scenarios. Okay. Uh, this ML modeling requires a strong foundation in mathematics, speech engineering, and machine learning. Uh, so uh, deep learning skills are also required by some organizations, especially who are focused into computer vision, NLP, or the speech recognition problem statements. Data engineers need strong coding and the software engineering skills. So you can combine with the machine learning skills to help them to make good data design decisions related to data, but they don't need very deep understanding of how the ML algorithm works and all this. Okay, so most of the time, data engineering is done using database query languages like SQL and Python. Then they heavily use the big data tools like Apache Spark and Kafka for, let's say, the stream processing. Then Snowflake is again a popular cloud data warehousing platform, basically, which offers like the businesses separate storage and the compute options. Okay, and then you have Apache Airflow as well, which helps you to build data pipelines through efficient scheduling of your task. So these are very useful tools which are widely used among the data engineers. Then team members who are working with business analysis need an understanding of basic statistics and the data science world as well. And they must have a solid communication skills because and the business understanding so that they could communicate with the client, understand the requirement, and also communicate back the analysis that they have done. Okay, so they use the programming tools like R, Python, and visualization tool like Tableau, Power BI stuff. And the teams who work in the deployment, they need to write the production code and understand any cloud techniques like AWS, GCP, or Azure. So this typically depends on which cloud platforms that particular organization is using. So nowadays, most of the big organizations, if you see, they are mostly using the combination of the cloud platforms. It's not just a single winner that you could find. So most of them, they're using, let's say, Azure and AWS together, or GCP, AWS. So like this, AWS is slightly in the upper edge as compared to GCP and Azure, but all of them has, you could find that specifically in the big MNCs, all of these three cloud platforms are something that they are leveraging for their business applications. For collaboration, Kit is one of the most needed one. For visualizations, you would go for any Tableau or Power BI. Any of the visualization tool is good enough to have. But an understanding of how the basically BI tool works, that is quite essential for, you can call it for both data analyst and data scientist tools as well. Okay, cool. Then let's just now talk about the roadmap. How can you set your roadmap for your data analyst or data scientist or any data relevant career? Okay, so the very first thing is to understand right now. Let's say you're sitting today on your desk and just trying to create a roadmap for the next 6 months, next 1 year, or next 2 years. So this is something very simple, 4 stages that you can call it as, that we need to get into any of this data relevant career. Okay, the very first step is like, first you need to assess your career, that at which stage right now you're in. Okay, so like, what are your existing data skills? Okay, you know Excel, you know SQL, you're in basics, you have understanding of Python. Okay, you need to get into intermediate stage of Python. Okay, so based on that, something that you have to take a call, that at which stage that you have to get in. Okay, so then the educational background wise also, you can think that, okay, your degree is fine now. What additional things you need, like whether you need to go for some boot camps or some additional courses or some like self-taught videos, anything that you can go for. Okay, and also, what is your current skill set with respect to your coding, mathematics, statistics, and analysis part, right? And also understand that what motivates you. Is it like the curiosity, problem solving, career growth? So all of this, at every level, you try to analyze your current situation. And then the next step is about learning all the foundational technical skills that you need to start before getting into the projects. Like before doing some hands-on, you need to have the fundamentals very strong, so that whatever problem statement that comes to your hand, you know exactly what steps need to be followed. Okay, so if you say look into the data science project or data analysis project, there's no predefined steps that has to be done, right? So we talked about a few minutes back in the initial in the starting of the session, that what are typically tasks that we do stage by stage, right? So although the stages are defined, but you can't define exact steps that, hey, after missing value checking, you have to do outlier. Okay, there's no clear 1, 2, 3 itself that you have to follow, right, in the particular manner. And also, like for example, if you're talking about handling missing values, okay, so there's no specific approach, or rather, I would say, on one and only approach to handle missing values for this particular task, right? So there are multiple approaches. The more number of approaches you know, the better it's for you to take a call that, okay, for this problem statement, what exactly the technique would be helpful or would be making sense in the end of the day. Right. So let's so we'll deep dive into this stage 2, 3, and 4 in the upcoming slides. Okay. Uh, so let me just take to the next stage. So I'll just quickly talk about this 3 in this slide, and then we'll deep dive into the upcoming slides. So first, get into the fundamental skills, then work on the projects, implement all your theoretical learnings into your projects, and then go for the job applications. Okay, so let's broadly talk about what are exact skill sets that are sufficient enough to get a data-driven job. Okay, uh, although this slide I have focused more into data analyst or data scientist specific roles. Okay, as we have already discussed, like what all things essentially needed for each of the roles. So in this slide, let me just focus more into the data science itself. Okay, so see, in the market you could find hundreds of tools, hundreds of algorithms, cloud platforms, and a lot of stuff, right? And it's very difficult, specifically at your stage, thinking that, okay, what all things, because you might be thinking, all right, in the end of the day, in the end of your curriculum, I need to get a job in the field of data, right? And it might sound or quite overwhelming looking into all of this different number of tools, algorithms, techniques, approaches all together, right? So let's try to bring it simple. Okay, so if you look into any typical data science role, okay, all you just need very 3 essential skills. Okay, 3 mandatory skills that if you are strong enough, you can excel in the data science field for years. Okay, not just I'm talking about getting into data job, even excelling in your data science field. Those three are like Python, SQL, and machine learning algorithms. Okay, done. That's it. Okay. Uh, when you know Python, basically that helps you to write codes, bring all your ideas, approaches, techniques, all your learnings into the coding, right? SQL, again, quite essential. Again, whether it's needed basic, intermediate, or advanced, it depends on the kind of role, data analyst, data engineer, or data science. If you're going for data engineering, as advanced SQL is needed. If you're going for data analyst, at I would recommend definitely intermediate to advanced level. And if you're going for data scientist, at least basic to intermediate is sufficient good enough. Okay. SQL is very essential, Python programming, and then you go for the machine learning algorithms. Okay. So first is know one of the programming language, either Python or R. If you're just interested to learn only one single language, go for Python in that case. Then fundamental of statistics. Again, you don't need to get expertise at very advanced level in statistics to get into the real job. Okay, so fundamentals are good enough. Knowing hypothesis testing, how to do, understanding what is the difference between mean, median, and mode, and also always try to ask questions as well. That, for example, if you're imputing something with mean, why mean? Is there any other approach? If you're using median, why median? Right? So why can't I use mean over here? Or forget about mean and median. Is there any other way of interpretation as well? Right? Or can I leverage some other columns information to impute something in my target column? Right? So try to explore a lot of different approaches, right? So that will bring more conceptual clarification for you that, okay, I'm doing this or I'm learning this and this is how it is applicable in the real. Because real fun comes when you actually understand that why you're doing something, right? So it's not about just getting projects done, number of projects. I've done 10 projects. That really does not impact. Okay, so what more essential is that answering the question that, okay, I've used this approach, why I've used this. Okay, I could have used approach number 2, approach number 3 as well, but because of the time limitation of the project, I couldn't use those, but those are also something that could have been used. Okay, that understanding is quite crucial for you. Okay, then definitely the ML algorithms. When you go for ML algorithms, understand how the algorithm works. Okay, so it's quite essential that you know the working of individual algorithms. So for example, if you're using some linear models like linear regression or loss regression, you should know what are the assumptions, right? So if they're working, why they're working. Okay, if they're not working, so when I'm saying working means it's not giving good accuracy. So if it is not giving good accuracy, then understand that why it is not. Okay, what is the data pattern? If it is non-linear, like is it like all the features are non-linear, or is it like one feature is nonlinear because of which your model is not performing well, right? So, or is it even possible that I could do some kind of ensembling of multiple models together as well, right? Then if you're, and then understand what are the cost functions used in these algorithms. Then if you're using decision trees, how the decisions are made, right? What are the advantages of leveraging decision tree? When it could overfit? If it is overfitting, how could I tune the model to not to overfit? And if it is okay to go for random forest if decision tree is overfitting, because sometimes it also happens in the businesses that, for example, in the financial institutions like banks and fintechs, they many a times they prefer decision trees over even complex algorithm like XGBoost, CatBoost, because they find that the intuition behind the decision making is quite essential. And sometimes because of the regulatory mandates as well, they go for only decision trees and not for advanced algorithms. Okay, despite knowing that, okay, the advanced algorithms put them even some higher accuracies. Okay, so sometimes the intuition behind the reasoning of the predictions are quite essential for the businesses as well. And so, but again, in certain use cases, certain organizations, this is not needed. All they just care about the accuracy of the model. Okay, so in those cases, go for all the advanced models like XGBoost, CatBoost, or even deep learning models if needed. Okay, the fundamental point that I'm referring with respect to machine learning algorithms, when you're using it, try to understand what are the arguments that you're using, why they are needed, how the algorithm is working, what are the pros and cons of those algorithms, what are the cost functions used in those. Okay, and again the fundamentals of machine learning, the bias variance trade-off, how could you regularize the model, right? L1 and L2 regulations, when to use, uh, and is it good enough to use directly only loss duplication, or shall I use L1 or L2 to regularize it to give a better result, right? So all of these are quite essential that you must focus into rather than just knowing the scikit-learn functions and just building it. Okay. Then a data visualization, go for any of the BI tool. You don't need all the BI tools to master. Just again, one tool is good enough to get into any field. Okay. By the way, I am not recommending that like during your course curriculum, you could find a lot of additional concepts, a lot of topics and everything. I would always recommend you to go through all of those, study properly all of those, get good scores. But what I'm mentioning that these are the fundamentals or the very essential that you can't skip, or something that I would rather recommend that you should put some extra focus into this key skills to get into the data science field. Okay, and these are the skills that even in your get your careers, right? After 3 years, 5 years, 10 years of your career in the data science field or data analytics field, these are something that would be always helpful and always would be needed. And these are more than sufficient enough for more than 90% of your jobs in the field of data. Okay. And definitely, once you get into any organization, you would be leveraging the cloud platforms, be it Azure, this. Over there, you can do some certifications of like AWS has a lot of certification, Azure, GCP, all of them have their own certifications. You could do a couple of certifications that will give you more understanding about their tools. Under, for example, AWS itself has more than 1,500 tools, and in the again in analytics, data science itself, like there are multiple tools that are used for each stages of your project development. Okay? All from like pre-processing, like you have text rag, you have specifically if you look into the SageMaker itself, under that you have a lot of additional packages and functions that could be leveraged. So I would recommend that again in the initial stage, it's not again I would recommend as a call it as a mandatory, but over the period of time when you get into the industries, you could pick any one particular cloud platforms which the particular organization is using, and then get excel into this slowly. Okay. All right. Then comes the most essential part as a that you must have in your resumes to showcase your expertise in the field of data. So and you also need to very much comfortable that understanding that what kind of projects, what kind of points that you should be keeping in your resume. Okay, so that will help you to differentiate with you other competitors, right? So once you go through all this theoretical understanding of the all the learnings of the data stuff, get started with the projects, because that will give you the real fun, real motivation to learn new concepts as well. Okay, so data science is really fun, and that's what, for example, in my case, I have worked with manufacturing industry. I've worked with fintechs, financial institutions, uh, then worked with e-commerce. Worked with pharmaceuticals quite heavily in the last couple of years, HR industry. So if you look into data science, any data field, all of this it works across the industries, right? And it's always fun to work with different business use cases. Uh, so and I've been 10 years into the data field, and I've never a single day felt bored about a particular project, because every project comes with its own challenge, own business use case, be it data challenge, be it the business problem statement with respect to the domain-wise challenge, be it the technique being used as a challenge. So a lot of different things that you would find, and a lot of cool stuff happens when you, in the end of the project, when you bring insights and bring value to the business in the end of the day. Okay, so uh, so you start with the beginner level projects. I would always recommend that be it like some data cleaning project, do some fundamental analysis that what's happening in this data, right? Clear, do some visualization stuff like create a dashboard to understand that, okay, these are the various visualizations that I could do. These are the insights that I could find from this chart. Okay, this chart is not useful. Let me scrap it out. Let me build some another chart which can show some meaningful patterns. Okay, get started with that. Then increase the complexity. Uh, Pick some more complex data. Like there are a lot of like websites from where you could get uh, open source data sets. I would recommend that you could pick any of these real world data sets, whichever industry that feels like. You could go for e-commerce data, manufacturing data, supply chain relevant, any other data. You could go for sports data. You could go for e-commerce. So any particular industry that you're into slice, you could pick two, three industries, get some data, uh, download it and start using it for any particular problem statement. Be it like if you have a target variable sales prediction, you like to do great sales prediction, you like to do some customer segmentation project, go for customer segmentation, right? Uh, so increase the complexity of your data set, do some more advanced analysis to understand more clear patterns from your data. Okay. And then some, if possible, also go for building some ML models as well. Okay. Now, when we talk about the resume, like in resume, what kind of projects that you should be showcasing. So this is where the real challenge comes, that the simple projects or something that is not relevant to some business use case don't give much power in your resume. Okay, so you are showing that for example, whether Indian team will win the next World Cup match or not, you find the probability, and you're applying to a let's say e-commerce company like Flipkart, is absolutely not much benefit that you'll bring on the table, right? Or you're applying to, let's say, manufacturing organization as a data scientist role, and you're just telling them that, hey, this is how the stock market predictions is going to happen in the next 30 minutes. So that won't be much helpful for them, right? So it's very important that you showcase something that has some real world applications and business value, specific, sometimes specific to their industry, would be more additional advantage. Okay. So for example, let's say pick any project like customer retention, right? It's a major challenge for every type of business, specifically which who are focused on consumers, right? Which could be like telecommunications operators, banks, or retailers, right? So for example, a telecommunication company will assess the probability of its customer switching service providers, right? Like which we call them as getting churned or not over the coming 3 months or 6 months, right? Uh, then you could pick something like making some accurate probability of default, right? Default predictions is one of the most valuable ML applications in the financial service industry. Uh, the underwriting products, right? So which is part of like the default prediction stuff. So this helps to like the organizations to determine the value of the credit backed bond portfolios, inform basically lenders' future credit worthiness decision, and they have a direct impact on their earnings, right? So pick such kind of projects which will add real business values, right? Uh, and working on projects end to end basically enhances your in-depth learning as well. So just make sure that you start working from all data extraction, understanding the business, do data analysis, do visualizations, build a model, build some visualizations in the BI tool, create a deck on all the presentations that you've made, right? And also you can share your projects with others, which basically would help others to motivate high quality work. Like you could build a small team. Let's say even if the team of two is also good enough, pick a particular project, split some tasks, see that, okay, if you're a person A is using this approach, this person B is using something different approach, and check it out that, okay, why A you have used, why I've approached C over B, right? So discuss within a team, and data science is a great teamwork, right? It's not something about that individually work and you could do great stuff. Data science itself is more of like a teamwork where various team members work with individually in the different type of task, and they come together and build a great, amazing product. Okay, so and just make sure that whatever you're doing, you document it and create some presentation. You can create some GitHub repository as well. Uh, and sometimes you could also find some interviews, they give some uh, like homework as a project as well. Like they will give you 2 days or a week to do some small project and come up with a presentation to showcase your understanding and your skill set that you're bringing on the table on that particular project. Okay. Now coming to the finding the right data science job, definitely your institution would be providing assistance on that. But if you're trying to understand like how should you approach, like because it's a huge industry, you could find across industries data science rules. Okay, no one is stopping you to go into data science in oil and gas sector, entertainment sector. You could find roles in Z has a lot of data scientist roles. Oil and gas, like Shell, has good data science team in Chennai. You could find across the different industries a lot of data science job roles. So initially, you could find mostly in banks or pharma, like most of the statisticians used to get into, and eventually they are renamed as and titled as a data scientist. But nowadays, you could find across all the industries, like more it started glamorous from the e-commerce and the tech industry, but eventually, if you see nowadays the manufacturing, then specifically in the supply chain, or even the you could say even LLMs into the pharmaceuticals has huge impact and bringing a lot of value on the table. So across different industries, wherever your interest lies, you could go for any of these industries. And the approach should be that you pick first one or two industries, apply in those specific, and then slowly, for example, okay, you apply to 10 different jobs in a specific industry and it's not working out, then go for adding multiple other industries one after another. Okay, don't just blindly just keep on applying. Really does not work for anyone. You could add in some informational interviews, which are also called as like informal meetings. So like someone who's already working in your target organization, and you just try to connect with them, understand that how their team looks like, what kind of projects they are involved in, what kind of skill sets they are looking for in a typical uh, data science or data engineering roles, right? So that will basically help you to prepare pretty well for the your upcoming interview in that organization. Okay. Networking is a great approach again that could help you to uh, connect to industry leaders and understand, not just learn, and also get referrals in their companies as well. Okay. Applications and referrals, definitely you could go to their company websites and apply to their particular from their job portals, ask for referrals, then prepare for interviews. As throughout the session, we have discussed about what all essentials that you need to get into uh, data science field. Practice some mock interviews that will help you to improve your confidence and the lack points that you have. And the most important part, the last one, persistence, that's very essential in the field of data because it's very, very easy to get lost, irrespective of how many years you prepare 1 year, 2 year, 6 months, 3 years, 5 years. Still, it's very easy to get lost in the field of preparation of your in that data. So the persistence is quite important. Whatever happens, you have to keep yourself motivated. Speak to people, do multiple projects, get more confident. Okay, and even the job market, you could find many times it could be challenging to get into, but and it has always been since the inception of the data science terminology when DJ Patel, like from the White House, he called the term as data scientist, and HBR named as the 21st century success job. 21st century. So till from there onwards, you could find like when from the very inception, it was quite challenging to get into this field. But now you could find a lot of openings coming up, but still it would be because a lot of people just wants to get into the data field, and irrespective of knowing what exactly it provides and whether their interest lies or not. Many people just think about the money factor and the title. Because of which they try to switch. But having the real motivation, real learning, real passion would basically help you to keep this persistence level. Okay. Because most of the time, if you have so many other reasons to get into the field, that will slow down and eventually you might know it become very, very challenging to get track any of the distance interviews. But if you have the real passion, motivation about the data, about finding patterns, bring real value to the business, you would love this field, and that will keep you motivated, irrespective of whether it's staying 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, 2 years, whatever it is. Okay. Cool. So that's all from my end, and thank you everyone again for joining here. And you could find me over like in if you'd like to have for any one-on-one sessions also like and they're on top of it and for single sessions. And pre-plus I'm typically started quite recently for long-term internship stuff. You could also connect me on LinkedIn. So I would share the presentation with the placement team and uh, so we could have any other questions perhaps, Aditya, like we'd love to have the question session then.
Yes, thank you, sir, for such an enriching talk. As we like nearly hit the placement season soon, so it was really enlightening for us. So now I would like to start with a question answer session. So if anybody has any questions, you can ask, or you can write it in the chat box as well.
So you can ask any type of questions. That's absolutely fine. No question is stupid. You don't need to think that about anyone else. You can just feel free to ask any type of questions.
Yes, sir. I have one question. Uh, Bhakti here. I take care of the placements of the students, as you all know, you are aware of it.
Right.
One small question I had is now the students would be hitting the placement season soon. You have been a panel for many companies, sir. So I would like to know what are the mistakes that students normally do and which they should not do while they are, giving the interviews.
Correct. So one of the crucial factor, as I was highlighting multiple times during the session as well, that so the companies typically what we want to see specifically, let's say, let's take this students as our target audience over here, as you all are applying as a kind of mostly, I believe most of you are as a fresher, you would be applying, right? Or
Yes,
like
sir.
you would have some experience as well in the field of data.
Many of them are freshers generally here.
So, as a fresher, what we are trying to understand that see, we really don't have much expectation. Actually, none of the organization keep very huge expectation from the freshers. All they want is, let's say, if I have a problem statement, if I give a data set with a particular problem statement to a particular fresher, he or she should be able to start leveraging this data to do some analysis, do some initial uh, job done by themselves instead of like leaving blank and just asking each and everything that okay, what is the one step, what is the next step, what is the third step? Okay, so right now the industry has come into that stage that even for a fresher, they're expecting that they would know the type of techniques available out there. They should know proper good coding. So one, let me talk about the first expectation that we have from the freshers is that very good coding skills. So for example, if you're getting into data analyst and you have to work in the SQL in the organization, we would expect that the candidate has at least intermediate level of SQL knowledge, like for example, knowing the window function, CT, like joins, definitely, and subqueries. So you'll get some case study questions and will be asked to write query in the interview itself. Okay. So having good coding skills, like as I was giving example of skills, similarly Python coding during the interview itself, they might ask. And again, it's a fundamental. Okay, so they won't ask you
Right.
that. Okay, more, when I'm saying they, most of the organization, most of the interviews won't ask you to derive, let's say, uh, like write linear regression from scratch. Okay, so they won't ask you
Right.
something question like this that would take real research stuff or take 1 hour to write some code. Okay, or very like they won't ask you to write some logistic function all from scratch. A logistic function always is a small function, but if you want to create from scratch also. But if you look into like some any deep learning algorithms, they won't ask you to write everything from very scratch. Okay, so the expectation would be that okay, for example, if I'm giving a simple question like write a undefined function to calculate mean and median of a particular list. Okay, so the function will take a list as an input and will return median or mean. So I've seen a lot of freshers are not able to write this function as well. Okay, so this is a undefined function, not I'm asking directly using NumPy or any statistics package, but the ability is more of like fundamental knowing that okay, so I have to use some basic sum of the all the list and dividing by the length. So that writing that itself will help me to understand that okay, if I have some task in the real world, I'll ask that fresher to write a function for this job. So if he or she is not able to write a function for mean and median itself, it's very highly like doubtful that he or she would be able to give if I ask him to write some business relevant function, right? So the fundamentals over here is quite crucial. So coding is expected that he or she would be able to code well. Okay, so many times when we see that okay, coding is not good, that is one red flag. Next, again, when we are going for let's say data science role, we go for asking machine learning algorithm concepts, some fundamentals like bias variance trade-off, or how do you analyze the error that we're getting in the model. So over there again, the fundamentals are important. That if someone is using decision tree or someone using linear regression, why you're using this or what are the assumptions that you have. Many times I find that they just go for very quickly about just they keep more focus into like increasing the number of projects. They just use the functions directly without understanding what's happening behind the scene. So whatever projects you're doing, whatever each and every step, you should know why you're doing this. Okay, so if you're using a technique like box
There's
plot
some
for
disturbance in the network.
uh, is it like there might be some net issues. Sure. Is it fine now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll just repeat this. So many times what I find that they if someone is using some technique, they are not able to explain why they have used or what are other techniques could also be used. Okay, so for example, if you're using box plot for identifying outlier, you should know how box plot is using what formula box plot uses to identify outlier. Okay, okay. Apart from box plot, what other techniques you could have used to identify outlier? That is quite crucial. So it's not about just using it or you are given some 8 steps, replicate 8 steps from GitHub or some online or some professor, whatever he or she is telling, but it's about understanding that, okay, why you're doing this, what are the other techniques could have been used if not this, right? That fundamental is very crucial. And definitely communication skill in the field of data is quite essential because many times it's you will be, as I was mentioning, that you'll be working in a team. Sometimes you might be also given if you're going into small startups, you'll be also given an opportunity to like also being the front desk for the client pitching as well. So in those cases, it's very important that you are good in communicating to the insights analysis to your senior stakeholders and the clients as well. So these three are the most crucial things because of which many people get rejected because they don't focus on the fundamentals. They don't focus into the coding. Sometimes communication is something that okay, like over the period of time, could be improved as well. But this the hard skills are very crucial for the freshers that can't be compromised.
So thank you so much. I think we have one question in the chat box. 1 second.
Fine. The first question, sir, Ritvik. Hi, Ritvik. Is it necessary to learn ML ops and DevOps these days? It's not mandatory, I would say, Ritvik. Okay. So this is something that once you get into the job, like there would be because you would identify the kind of tools they are using. Okay, because the kind of tools again varies organization to organization that they use for MLOps or DevOps. So and it involves heavily the cloud platform. Again, like I would recommend that if you're interested in MLOps, learning any cloud platform, knowing the deployment and all those would be really helpful. Okay, so if you could do a couple of AWS certification, 1, 2 certification as well, that would be really great. So these are, I would say, good to have, but it's not mandatory. So if you're joining directly as a like for MLOps team and all, in those cases, there might be scenarios where they might be asking questions specific to deployments, uh, monitoring stuff and everything. Knowing some tools would be again beneficial, like CloudWatch and everything. But still, it's not quite necessary. I would recommend call it as a mandatory that you must have. Okay? So specifically, if you're going for data analyst or data scientist, it's not quite mandatory. It's just that you could find some startups, very early stage startups, might look for everything you should have in resume, which becomes quite challenging in the real world. But otherwise, keeping that few percentage, 2-3% of companies aside, if you go for the remaining 95 to 97% of companies, it's not. And your goal, I would recommend as a fresher, focus on the 95% of the companies. Okay. If you're really interested into the remaining 5% or 2%, like for example, again, I would say that deep learning algorithms, for an example. Okay. So, or LLMs, okay, or some deep NLP transformer model stuff concepts, okay. Again, I would not say that it's a mandatory for a fresher, okay. It's not very much necessary, but yes, having some knowledge is good, but expertise is not needed as a fresher, because again, that type of companies who are expecting as a fresher that will be working in directly deep learning production ready production stage algorithm production stage projects is very rare. Okay, so that is something that again, like, aim for the remaining 95% of the companies, right? That will increase the probability of getting selected. Okay, so Tushar has one question. Thanks, hi Tushar. So please, can you recommend some reinforcement learning projects for beginners? Just a point that I just mentioned a few minutes back, that you don't need to focus much on reinforcement learning. To be very honest, you could find some projects like building some small robot stuff for some automation type of task, something that you can think of. Okay, but this let me tell you that you would hardly find. For example, you can also think of like some advanced recommendation algorithms. Okay, you could leverage reinforcement learning. Okay, that is something you can pick it up as a recommendation engine. But uh, saying again, but that it's not mandatory. It's just it falls under reinforcement learning when you're talking about in real world right now in India. If you ask me, is less than 2% of the companies in Pune, even it would be less than 2% as well, who are actually going for reinforcement learning. Okay, in real world use case, it's very less than 1%. So it's not much something that you could actually expect in the real world once you join the organization. So, one more question: how important are certifications for freshers like Six Sigma? Uh, right now, if I say in the industry, coming to Six Sigma is not much useful. It has been useful when we are talking about even 2010, 2015 at that time. But currently, to be very honest, it's not much useful, because Six Sigma majorly covers some level of fundamental to intermediate, not even it reaches to the intermediate of the data science, because data science has matured quite enough and became much broader as well in terms of expectation, in terms of problem statements that we're solving, more than statistical approaches, because Six Sigma covers a lot of statistical algorithms and approaches, but it's much higher and it's reached more advanced level than the Six Sigma. So Six Sigma will just cover very little concept and it won't be very much helpful. Rather, I would recommend some Coursera, some you would find good certifications like ML specialization, multi specialization certifications. Those are much powerful, because those are done by some either like you could find some IBM is doing, or Google, or some big from US Ivy League colleges are sometimes providing those. So those are pretty powerful certification, and which provides a lot of very like specifically I would recommend the specialization course, because that includes 5 different courses and all together. So that brings more valuable certifications than the 6. Okay, I don't know the name. It's the coded one. What are the in-demand skills and specializations within data science? Okay, so right now, if you see specialization wise, see when we talk about till ML stuff, it's again became now in the industry become generic and expected. Like NLP is one of the specialization. Okay, natural language processing. You could find certain use cases, certain companies working specifically into the NLP projects. Most of you would have heard about the generative AI LLMs. That's the talk in the town right now. So for the last 1.5 years, right now I'm leading GenAI team at Aptos Data Lab. So GenAI is something again quite specialization, and something all of the analytics and the big organizations are trying to get into this LLMs right now. That is another specialization. Deep learning is another specialization. You could call it as there are certain things like working specifically into transformer models, LSTM models, and all those stuff. Then another specialization you could come into the computer vision stuff. That is another specialization where there is certain you would find projects, and that again falls under the 2-3% of companies in India right now who are focusing to computer vision projects. So these are major specialization: NLP, LLMs, computer vision, deep learning. Yep, these are the specializations that you could find within data science. Okay. Ritvik has another question. So there are high in demand for LLM and NLP. I have been applying for jobs for the past 6 months, but I'm not. But almost every company is asking for LLM and its relevant experience, even for associate role or internship roles. I have done more number of projects in computer vision and maybe some. So Ritvik, see that is fine. Okay. Let me. This is an important part to note that try for checking the companies that you're applying for again. It's very important that most of the freshers get lost because it's not laser focused the type of companies that you're applying. Okay, so if I ask you the question that for the past 6 months, tell me the approximate number of companies and give at least, if you're applied more than 10, give at least 5 company names or 10 company names. If you're not able to answer, that means that you're not properly targeting the companies. Okay, so if you just abruptly open Naukri or Hirist or any such recruiting platforms and just keep on applying, it won't be helpful. Okay, see, to be very honest, LLMs are specifically, if you look into the startups, you could find few of the startups specifically, like for example, like right now, I mean, Aptus and we are having some LLM team, right? So you could find small startups having LLM teams where they are hiring freshers as well. They're trying to hire freshers, either someone who has already worked or some they're willing to some train as well. Big MNCs won't typically would take LLM guys as a fresher. Okay. Next, it's important again that in the real world, it's just 5% of the companies who are actually working to LLMs. Yes, in the near future, you would find a lot of companies, almost more than 50% of current analytics companies who are into the analytics will be coming into LLMs. But as a fresher, till today, it's not something for 90% companies, you won't find it is mandatory to have. Okay. And I won't recommend you guys that just focus into LLM, apply for LLM jobs and you get it. Okay. It's very difficult for you in that case also to get, because they will still look for your fundamentals. Okay, they will ask you how transformer model works, how what is embedding, what is vector database, why what are the chunk size that you're using, why do you use this chunk size, how do you decide your chunk size for your LM. So it's very essential that you know the fundamentals very clear over there as well. So if you spend just because if you right now just do some GitHub search for create a chatbot using LLM, you'll just get a query, some code in GitHub, and you can just copy paste and build a chatbot. But and I could see that a lot of right now resumes that I'm getting also more of like this, where they have as a fresher they have done some chatbots like this, but it's not. They really don't know the deep fundamentals and how it's actually working. Okay, so that won't be even helpful again. Okay, so if you're really wanting to go for LLM, that's I would definitely recommend, but learn deeply. Okay, so, and again, I would say it's not mandatory. Don't get diverted just because of these few jobs where you're seeing LLMs and all. Okay, still 90% of the job roles require SQL, Python, machine learning. It's sufficient to survive in this data science field for the next 10 to 15 years at least. Okay, even if you don't touch NLP. Okay, so it's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that. But just make sure that the point that you have mentioned that you have done computer vision machine learning part projects. So if you're applying for computer vision role, write computer vision projects. Let's say if you're going for some ML role or data science projects role, and you would keep computer vision 2-3 projects and just one ML project, that is a negative point. Again, you would lose points for that. Okay? So just make sure that you're targeting your company, the way you're targeting, your resume should be fitting it, the kind of projects that you're mentioning on your resume. And is it recommended to have resume within one page? Absolutely. It's recommended to have in one page. Rather till 5 years or 10 years. Even my resume is also just a one page only. So just always you have to make sure that you keep in a single page. Keep adding points, keep the powerful stuff in your resume over the as your experience grows, but it's always recommended that you keep a single page on. No, you don't need to explain much of your project. Okay, the single liner, two liner for per project is more than sufficient. So you keep add on four projects with a single line or two line. I think that's fine. You can get into a single page.
Thank you, sir, for like answering the questions. And also, I also have a question. Like,
Sure.
if suppose as a fresher, we are building a project on LLMs, basic LLMs, like as you said, the chatbots and all. So, what are the possible set of questions we would like we can expect from the hiring panel?
So see, definitely when we are talking about LLMs, the very fundamental stuff is, let's say that which model you are using. Let's say you're saying that, okay, I'm using GPT 3.5 OpenAI API. Okay. So tell me that whether it's what kind of LLM model it is, right? What architecture it follows. Okay. So is it encoder decoder model? Is it a decoder only model? Is it encoder only model? Okay. So let's say you answer it is okay, it's a decoder only model. Then explain me why decoder only models are preferred LLMs nowadays than other type of architecture. Okay, so these are like fundamentals that helps you to for the interviewer to know that okay, you really know the concept. Okay, then what are the typical NLP pre-processing stages you have? Okay, why do we need tokenization? Okay, why do we need to do embeddings? Okay, then you're using chunk size. What is your chunk size? Why you have opted for, let's say, 1,000 as a chunk size? Okay, why not 500? Why not 1,500? Okay, or how chunk size impacts LLM models? Okay? Which vector database you have used? What are the other vector database you could have used? What are the pros and cons of this vector database? Right? What are the other vector database available in the market? What is the need of vector database? Right? Tell me the architecture of RAG, right? How RAG architecture works. So these are all the fundamentals that if you're not able to explain, let's say you're using RAG and you don't know how RAG works, that is really not helpful, right? So and then because these are the fundamentals that because tomorrow it's not that if you join in the organization you have to work on chatbot only, right? You will be given another project like do some report generation project, okay? Financial annual financial report generation. This is one of the business use cases, let's say. Okay, so you should know how to, let's say, and you can get the data from PDF, you can get the data from web page, right? So how do you load web page in your project? Okay, how do you read PDF? Okay, how do you parse the information if you have PDFs in different templates? Correct. So, for example, you're using LangChain. So, in LangChain, there would be questions around LangChain that there could be some technical questions like what functions have you used for reading the PDF files, okay, or which embedding model you have used. So, which function have you used for that? Like, what kind of promptings you have used? Have you used some prompting technique or not? What are the best practices for writing prompts? Right. So, these are some kind of questions that you could expect relevant to whatever you have done is relevant about the best practices, techniques, approaches, and all this stuff.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to say that it was a very enriching experience for all of us. And now I would like to call over Smruti to give the vote of thanks. Over to you, Smruti.
Thank you, Ajay. It is my great pleasure to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks to all those who have contributed to the success of today's enriching webinar. Firstly, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Abhishek Das. Your insightful presentation and valuable knowledge on navigating the data science career landscape has truly enriched and sparked enthusiasm within us. Your expertise and engaging delivery has made this session incredibly worthwhile for all of us. I would also like to thank our esteemed placement officer, Bhakti Thite ma'am, for her unwavering support and meticulous planning that has been instrumental in making this event possible. A special thank you to our beloved director, Sir Dr. T.P. Singh, and our deputy director, Dr. Vidya Patkar ma'am, for their guidance. Lastly, a heartfelt thank you to all the dedicated members of the placement cell, especially to Tushar, our student placement head, the faculty staff, the IT support team, and the entire webinar team for your excellent organization, constant support, and encouragement in this webinar. Once again, thank you for all those who have been a part of this wonderful session, and we look forward to more such enriching experiences in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.